सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दोग्धा गोपालनंदनः पार्थो वत्सः सुधीर भोक्ता दुग्धम गीतामृतम महत्. The Lord Cowherd milked all the cows of Upanishads and served the calf, who was Arjuna, and all the discerning people out there. So, I am Poornima, welcoming you all to the 7th session of the KLF, and I thank the organizers for this brilliant opportunity to engage with one of the most brilliant minds in the field, Mani Rao. Dr. Mani Rao, who will be discussing with me for you about the Bhagavad Gita. She has translated the entire Bhagavad Gita. She is a doctorate in religious studies, and she has dived deep into the ocean of Bhagavad Gita, and true to her name, brought out many monies out of it. The jewels, right? So, I welcome you all to a very pleasant session. And over to Dr. Mani Rao. Mani, can you have a very checkered career journey. Like Mani Rao has had a stint as an advertiser also. She has worked with Star TV. And then she moved on to pure academics and religious studies. And can you just brief us about how it has been, the whole journey, and how you came about into this? You're a poet in English, basically, and then you're now concentrating, as I understand, on deep into our cultural heritage and Sanskrit, literature in Sanskrit, and basically. So how has this been for you?
Thank you, first of all, Poornima, for your very generous introduction. I don't think I know any more than you do. In fact, I probably know a lot less. But I really thank you for your kindness. I came to the Gita as a human being in crisis. When I was 39 years old, I had a life crisis, and I began to look for answers in heritage texts. So I'm actually a heritage learner. I turned to early Indian thought to see what I could learn about the meaning of life. And the Gita really attracted me. When I started reading it, it gave me a lot of courage. It gave me a lot of courage to wake up. Wake up, fight, live, do your duty, have equanimity. How do you rise above the world? How do you rise above all the things that you have to deal with on a daily basis? We'll, I'm sure, talk more about many of those messages and discussion as we have our conversation. But that is how I first came across the Gita. At the same time, I was doing a course in translation studies in the USA, and I had to do a textual analysis of a particular work, of a few shlokas or a few stanzas. And this became that project. And when I looked at a number of different translations, I felt that the experience of the Gita that I was having was not reflected in those translations. I've actually written an essay on this also, a textual analysis of a few shlokas to show how different the interpretations and angles are. And I then came up with a rubric. How do you do a readable translation, not bogged down by commentary, not bogged down by footnotes, something you can pick up and read from start to finish in English. And, you know, it was challenging, of course, and I don't think it's 100% successful, but that was my attempt, and that's why I did that.
Okay, thank you, Mani, for that. And Bhagavad Gita is basically the initial step into your foray into Sanskrit, right? That was the first book you undertook. Sanskrit book?
No, I studied Sanskrit in school.
School, okay.
And you know, in those days, actually, Sanskrit was a part of the syllabus. I mean, I finished my school in 1982. It was in a Kendriya Vidyalaya, and we had studied some Gita shlokas, you know. We had mugged it up, karmanyavadikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana, etc., etc.
Okay.
So only 5 or 6 shlokas, I thought, yeah, I know the Gita, why do I need to read it? I already know Atman is indestructible, next. You know, what else is there to say about it? So I never read it. I only read it when I was almost 40.
And then you proceeded to translate many other works also.
Not many others, just a couple of things. One is the Saundarya
Saundarya
Lahari, which
Lahari.
came almost a decade or 14, 15 years later after that particular journey culminated in that. And I've translated a few very stray things, like one Gurvashtakam here, one something there, some stray things. I'm not really like on a translation enterprise of Sanskrit texts or anything like that.
As a translator, and I think, you're basically an English poet.
Yes.
So the poet in Mani Rao, actually, we find that it reflects vastly in her translations also. So I'm rather charmed by the way you have undertaken a very free translation of the verses, quite in contrast to all the other translations hitherto available on the Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita is generally looked upon as a didactic work and full of injunctions, and the translations generally, though extremely full of insight, they tend to be prosaic. But this is a very refreshing shift from the usual manner of translation that also gives you a lot of freedom, and it also comes as a breeze to the readers who once get accustomed to the different way of translation. Can you throw more light on how your particular choice of this mode, and if possible, could you also recite for us the Bhagavad Gita in its original and your translation, please?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. So, I think I will start by sharing what is the experience of the Gita that I'm talking about first, and because then that is the clue or the key to this entire translation. When you listen to the Gita or study it, this is usually how you receive it. Dharma kshetre kurukshetre. And then in the recordings you always have ping samaveta yuyutsavaha mamakaha pandavaschaiva. It's in a very monotonous tone, and everything is in that tone. The entire 700 verses are in that tone.
It's soothing in its own way, but whether it conveys what it needs to convey is...
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So when I see it, this is how I saw it. Because at that point, a lot has already happened in the Mahabharata. There is a lot of tension between the two armies. This is how I read it.
Yeah, please.
Dhritarashtra uvacha dharma kshetre kurukshetre samaveta yuyutsavaha mamakaha pandavaschaiva kimakurvata sanjaya. That is the tone in which I can hear it when I read it. And
Full
so
of apprehension and
the
tension
apprehension,
and the
the-
eagerness
yeah.
to know what's going on.
there is a lot of
Dhritarashtra
drama.
doesn't
There
have
is-
eyes and he's not able to see.
Yeah.
And he's full of anxiety
Yes,
also. Yeah.
yes, and this is it's a whole, there are a lot of dharmic questions in this entire Gita. There is a lot of content in it. This is not like, something, when you wear the cloak of piety, it's okay to do that, but also jump into the expression
Absolutely.
and get into the bhava. So
Yeah.
that became my inspiration, is matching my response to the verses with using that as a barometer of
Yes,
sorts.
yes.
So what I did was I created a few criteria. What are the main criteria? The criteria is that Krishna is speaking to Arjuna on the battlefield. It's spoken word. It's not written. It's not a written shastric kind of thing.
It's one-to-one.
It's one-to-one. It's intimate. It's spoken word. The Sanskrit is simple. It's not like showing off its abilities and skills and compound words.
Not
So the translation also should be simple. If Arjuna doesn't understand it, it's of no use. So the translation has to help that understanding, And Krishna is not stopping in the middle of the speech and saying, and now chapter 2, atha dvitiyo adhyaya. So those chapter divisions I got rid of. In my translation, there are no chapter breaks, there are no chapter headings. You start, but then you have the numbers, so you can correspond it. And on the left pages, you have the Sanskrit. So if you want to go to the Sanskrit, you can.
Yeah.
So now I'll read you
Yeah,
from it,
sure,
so that
please.
will explain more than all the explanations.
Yeah, please.
Dhritarashtra to Sanjaya. And when it came to that, might, right, face off, what happened? Who did what? Sanjaya to Dhritarashtra. Duryodhana took in the enemy lineup and said to Dronacharya, no thanks to you, Professor, trained by you. Drishtadyumna, chief of the other side, has put it together. A who's who of heroes, each a Bhim and Arjun. Yuyudhana, Virata, Drupada, Drishtaketu, Chekitana, and the king of Kashi, Purujit, Kunti Bhoj, Bulish, Saibya, Yudhamanyu, Uttamaojas, Abhimanyu, and the famous 5 sons of Draupadi. Not that we're less prepped. We've got Bhishma and Karna and Kripacharya and Ashwathama and Vikarna and the Somadatta sons and all sorts of weapons at their fingertips. For my sake, their life on the line, and yet it's not enough. Our might guarded by Bhishma to their might guarded by Bhima. In every move, stick to your roles. Keep your head, Bhishma, safe. Grand Lion Bhishma bellowed, yeah, and blew his conch, erupt his troops, took it up on drums and cymbals and trumpets. What a riot! Then from a sleek chariot on 2 white steeds leapt an unearthly sound. Krishna's Panchajanya and Arjuna's Devadatta. Then Bhima's hungry Poundra, King Yudhishthira's victory call, Nakula's nice tone, Sahadeva's gem bloom, each announced himself unique. King of Kashi, Shikhandin, Drishtadyumna, Virata, unbeatable Satyaki, Drupada, his sons-in-law, the 5 Pandavas, and power arm Abhimanyu revved, shook earth and sky, busted your sons' hearts. Armies all set, weapons about to clash under the hero Hanuman banner. Arjuna reached for his bow and paused. So now let me read you one more small section. I will cut to 2.11. This one is where Krishna starts to speak. Ashocyan anvashocastvam prajnavadamscha bhashase gatasun agatasunscha nanushochanti panditaha. There again, actually the tone is very important. It's not just that you're speaking wise words. Actually, he's saying you're speaking wise words. Yeah, don't be a fool. Ashocyan anvashocastvam prajnavadamscha bhashase. That's the tone, So, Krishna, nice speech, Arjuna. But the truly wise know better than to be sad over life that's gone or not. Life and death pass. I was never not and never won't be. You too and them. You change in this body from child to adult and decrepit. And you change into another body again. Sensations, cold, heat, pleasure, pain are mortal. Sensations are mortal. They come and go. Stay unruffled for immortality. Stay unruffled. By them get ready for immortality. If it isn't, it isn't. If it isn't true, it isn't real. What you call reality is really virtual reality. Your reality is materiality. Material, changeable, mortal, untrue, immaterial. It seems as if, but there's no truth in fiction. What is clear to a seer. That by which this immaterial matter is permeated is permanent. Bodies end. The embodied, timeless. Let's call it it. Cannot be measured, destroyed, so fight, Arjuna.
Thank you very much. That kind of brought the initial thing, at least brought the battlefield in front of our eyes. And your mention of there's no chapter division, there cannot be chapter division, brings me to another query, Mani. Okay, about the very title of the if you can, this corpus, Bhagavad Gita, which you have also translated as God's song, right? So do you really think that Krishna would have been singing to Arjuna in the battlefield? Should it not be some Bhagavad Upadishta or some, something like that?
No, very good question. I think God's song is basically marketing. It is marketing for probably an English-speaking audience. The second reason was that the previous edition of this Gita translation actually was only called Bhagavad Gita.
Okay.
So I think the publisher wanted to put...
Yeah, but Bhagavad Gita, again, literally translated, Gita means song.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it is, I agree, it is a literal translation. And it is, obviously, it's a distortion. Every perspective is going to be a distortion. And God's song is something that will, it's got a Western
anyway, the God's song
to it.
catches people's fancy.
So
and of course it can be sung. Probably the reason why it came to be sung all the time. In a kind of lulling people to sleep. Kind of a
Would you have preferred Krishna's advice?
Yes. Isn't it an advice for each person? That's the beauty of Gita, that anybody can adapt it to their requirement. I think you have also, of course, mentioned this, that the way you see it, it blooms before you.
Yes.
Anybody can take a leaf or two from that. Whenever you are in a crisis, you can turn to Gita. That's why right from Gandhi to Godse, everybody has been citing the Gita for all the deeds. So it's very universal and all-encompassing corpus of work we have out there.
And you know, also, just to add on to this discussion we're having, you know, sometimes people ask me, like, do you think it's an authoritative text? Yeah. And I always say, that's not so much what I would say. I would say, here is a person, figure, character, speaking with authority. Rather than saying it's an authoritative text, I would say, here is somebody who says, I am everything, you know. I am, everything comes from me, is speaking with that tone of authority. So that is, I think, also one of the reasons why this particular work has attracted so many people. It is not a devotional address to a divine, it is the divine speaking to humanity.
It's, yes, Krishna, when he is exhorting Arjuna to fight, he has not an iota of doubt in himself. or what he says, or what Arjuna should do. But Arjuna, on the other hand, is literally, at the edge of despair, and he's seeking somebody to advise him on the path to take the right advice. And he says, Shishyasteham shadhimam tvam prapannam. I surrender to you, but please lead me to the right course of action.
I'm your student.
I'm your student. So, one very interesting aspect I found in your translation, Mani, is that you have placed yourself in the place of Arjuna, as any reader of Bhagavad Gita should. It's not just between Krishna and Arjuna, but it's between somebody who knows to all those who are seeking knowledge. So they say, in fact, it is said that it is a speech between Nara and Narayana. So Nara, we are all Nara, the common mortals. Whenever we have some doubt, we can turn to Bhagavad Gita. That's how, and that's the way you have encountered this work, or you have seen this work, and you have placed yourself in the place of Arjuna. You have posited there, and something which I have not seen earlier is that for the usual he, where the masculine, it is a male is addressed, Arjuna is addressed everywhere, and they talk of the person who has attained true knowledge. It is always sthita prajna. It is the reference is always to a male, whereas in your translation it is a female. Wherever there is a he there, you would rather translate it as a she, because you see it from your perspective. She. Have you...
Can I just tell you a little bit more about that, then we can go deeper into it? Yeah, the thing is that the previous edition actually had S stroke HE.
Okay, there has been a suggestion
and
to such.
The interesting thing is, I think, over the 15 years or so that I have lived with this work, or maybe it's 20 years, I think, just as different things have attracted me to it at different times in my life, somehow there has been a little bit of an evolution as well. And in the latest edition, I'm like, to hell with S stroke HE.
I am me.
I am she.
I am she.
I am me. So I went
and
with
it applies
she.
to me. So it gives a very beautiful feminist perspective to the whole thing. But even there, do you think unconsciously you have also been guided with the ingrained patriarchy? Because in a couple of translations, even as you say, for instance, in fact, I would like to say this 8:12. Sarvadvarani samyamya manye hridi nirudhya cha. Okay, murdhya adhyatmanah pranam asthito yoga dharanam. It is about yoga and how you control all your senses. You close all the crevices or the gates in your body, or orifices in your body. And in your translation, very interestingly, when you here it only says all, the original says all orifices. Whereas in your,
in the flow.
In the flow of your poetry, you have said 9, remember, 9 orifices. Yeah. I couldn't help but think that women, in fact, have 10 orifices. And even so, and elsewhere also it's been elaborated what are the orifices. So the 10th orifice doesn't get the mention.
Yeah,
it's in a general
absolutely.
form.
Actually, in other parts of the Gita, the 9 number is mentioned.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And so, in this particular point, when you come to 8.12,
it is
my comment within brackets is a commentarial edition
Okay.
which refers back to what
The
was
other-
previously said, which
said
is the
about-
9 orifices, the nostrils, the ears, I mean the counting of
The
the 9.
Yonit Dwara
Yeah.
is
Yeah,
just
so I was
kept aside.
referring back to that. But I would say that the broader point that you make, actually I do agree with you on that.
Yeah.
And it's something for us to discuss and bring out. I think you're right. That if you were actually converting this into a truly feminist work, you
and
would
if
be
it-
thinking of 10
Yeah.
orifices and not 9. And before we talked about it on the phone, I hadn't actually even thought of it. I hadn't even thought of it. And when you said that, I told you that this is brilliant. This is really brilliant.
Thanks.
You know, I am aware of how when some people say, oh, you know, the Sushrita Samhita, just throw it out because it's wrong about the anatomy of women. You know, you don't throw out the baby with the bath water. You know?
Okay, Mani, I think
You know, you take what
we
you
have
like
about
from it,
15
yeah.
more minutes
Okay.
if we want to leave some scope for
Okay.
questions.
Yes.
And I think I would like to cover a few more salient points.
Let's.
It's like, you know, or in fact we can combine several things on the philosophical aspects. I would just touch upon a few instances in the Bhagavad Gita. One is in chapter 2, when after describing the, you know, the nature of Atman, Krishna goes on to tell Arjuna that, see, I have, you know, I have delineated all this in the manner of Sankhya. Now you apply your mind to the yoga aspect of the whole thing. There we first come across the word Sankhya and Yoga. And later, of course, in I think in chapter 13, there is a deeper dwelling on the Sankhya and the Yoga philosophy. There are many philosophical allusions throughout the Bhagavad Gita. So I just want to take this, and there is also a different instance in chapter 9, when Krishna says that I am the Adhyaksha. Adhyaksha means I am the overseer, I am looking on. I created the Prakriti, and the Prakriti proceeded to create all that is the universe. And I just watch. After creating Prakriti, I am dispassionately watching. So here, and he also says, because of this cause, the universe changes. The word used is viparivartate, viparinama, which is rather, it's not a change like, it's not an entire change. It's not a change of a swarupa, but more like how a milk would turn into curds. The nature remains the same, but the thing changes. So, does it refer to the Vivartavada? And what do you really understand by the Sankhya or the Yoga? You're the right person to elaborate on this because you have dwelled deep on the philosophy and religious aspects of the thing. And when Krishna calls himself the Adhyaksha, does he allude to the fact that he in fact is the Paramatman? Because in the Upanishads, we do talk of the Paramatman as the Sakshi, like we even have in the Shvetashvatara Upanishad, this analogy of two birds, Dva Suparna Sayuja Sakhaya Samanam Vriksham Parishasvajate Tayoranyaf Pippalam Swadvatya Nashnananyo Abhichaka Shiti. There are two birds on the branch of the tree. Of them, one of them relishes the fruit of the tree, whereas the other just looks on without actually partaking of it. That is a reference that is generally understood to be the reference to the Paramatma and Jivatma. Jivatma, which is all the people, all of us. And we get drawn to the material aspects of life, whereas the Paramatma remains spectator without taking active part in it.
I got your question,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
So it's very interesting. I find we all want to fit it into something. Everybody wants to know, is this Sankhya? Is it Vedic monism? Is it this? Is it that? You know? And you will also find that different people who come from different doctrinal affiliations will interpret it according to their own doctrine as well. You will see that the same word, this is just to preface before I answer your first question. You will see the same word, let us say karma, okay, is interpreted as service by Gandhi, as Kriya Yoga by Yogananda, as Bhakti by Bhakti Vedanta, as action by Chinmayananda, you know, depending on whether they are following Bhakti or Advaita or whatever it is. And similarly we have, you know, you have Madhvacharya, you have Ramanujacharya, you have Shankaracharya, you have so many bhashyas. And then the question comes, you know, is Krishna like taking responsibility or is he not taking responsibility? Is he the full creator or is there a medium? You can see connections to Tantra also that way. That there is Prakriti, there are gunas, and Prakriti is a medium in which this happens, and he is just the Adhyaksha. On the other hand, he says, I have done everything comes from me. You know, so it is difficult to fit it into one box or the other. As far as Sankhya is concerned, you cannot actually find an exact match with Sankhya also. Maybe it is an early form of Sankhya, or some of the ideas of Sankhya are in it. Like in Sankhya, you don't really have the Ishvara idea. Whereas
Difference of opinion on that. There
okay,
are people who say that there is Ishvara.
Yeah, so
similarly, Nyaya.
this is, you know, the way I see it is, it's a narrative. And in this narrative, it may not fit into this box or that box. What can we take out of it? Is really where I end up as, because I don't think there are any clean answers. For example, also, and this probably will open something else which will take longer to discuss, but you know, in the 4.13, the Chaturvarnyam verse, the second line he says, Tasya kartaram api mam, Tasya kartaram mam vidya, akartaram avyayam. You know, I am the doer and I am the non-doer. It doesn't touch me, you know, it doesn't attach to me, it doesn't wrap around me. So that is a doubt that will go on being discussed until the end of time. As far as the three yogas, you know, they say, oh, is it Bhakti Yoga, is it Jnana Yoga, is it Karma Yoga? Are there three different paths? Actually, I think that there's a lot of back and forth and merging off. It's not like exclusive paths. You will see sometimes buddhi being used, jnana being used. Bhakti is suggested as an option, but if you don't, if you can't do bhakti, then do service. You know, if you can't
or service to God,
first
or
you
service
start
to
with
humanity.
jnana. If you can't focus on me, then focus on bhakti. If you can't focus on bhakti, then do service. You can't do this, then, you know, it's like there are all these ways, whatever suits you, you can do, which is also part of the handbook and compendium approach which has attracted people. And it is difficult to fit it into a box. It's not a clean-cut philosophy in it. The attraction of the Gita is actually not in that direction. I don't think it will like pass a professor's test. I don't think it will pass a professor's test. The attraction of the Gita is how you experience it. If you are a devotee of Krishna or of any guru or any figure, personal figure, you may respond to it as the devotee. If you are in crisis and you really want to know how to get out of the dvandva, you know, how, then this may give you clues on a number of things, such as, you know, sangat sanchayate kamaha, kamat krodha. You understand the process. And by understanding the process and thinking about things, you can come out of it. So the attraction is more as a practical handbook. I don't think it's a philosophically flawless treatise at all.
It's life's philosophy rather, and life keeps changing.
Yeah.
In fact, there's another thing when we were talking about that feminist aspect of your translation, Mani. I skipped asking you, which I wanted to ask you. I draw your attention specifically to the stanza 932. Where actually, women, 9.32, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah? Where women and there is, and then we'll, from here we will proceed to the Chaturvanya.
Okay.
So here, there's in one breath, Vaishya, Shudra, and women, they are classed as Papa Yonaya. So, what's your take on that? Like, how would you?
I'm now the defense lawyer for Krishna.
Yes. Yes.
I am not qualified to
the
be.
the defense advocate and the defense lawyer, they both, they have the same constitution to go by.
The messenger has to answer for it. Yes, I know. But slightly, the messenger won't get the same blame because I'll say a few things about how I dealt with it.
Yeah.
Not what it is, because it is what it is. How I dealt with it. Of course, it is, as a woman, Papa Yonaya is like, for me, dreadful. It's dreadful, yeah. But in a translation, you're not cutting something out. How I solved it is I made it the fourth line first. Instead of the first line that encompasses women, Vaishyas and Shudras. Second, I did not want to leave it disembodied as yoni, womb. I converted it into lawless mothers. Why I did that? I looked at every instance of how Papa is used in the Gita. I looked at, you won't incur any Papa, where Krishna says that to Arjuna. It is always used in contrast to Dharma. It is used in contrast to law and order, meaning that you are not, when you go outside a certain boundary, when you make a mistake, when it is an error, it is used in those contexts. So I studied all of those instances. And even like, for example, when Krishna says that, when he says that among the rivers I am Ganga, I am the love which does not go beyond Dharma, He very clearly draws the line of what cannot be sort of contravened. He draws the line. So therefore, I translated it as lawless. And it's interesting when you look at how different people have dealt with it. Everyone has come up with their own solutions.
Yeah,
I don't think anybody has solved it.
I have found some translations which separates Papa Yonaya.
Yes.
Those of sinful womb and Vaishya, Shudra and women.
Yeah,
but still, again, the question persists, why exclusively mention Vaishya, Shudra?
So, for example, Aurobindo translates it like this. Though outcasts born from a womb of sin, women, Vaishyas, even Shudras, they also. Okay? Graham Schweik translates this, whether they come from troubled wombs or whether they be women, tradespeople and skilled workers. Every single translation you see has not got a solution or a reconciliation to it. And I think the way for us to go forward on this is really, if we are troubling with it, congratulations. It says a lot about who we are today. It says a lot about who we are today, and let us take respite in that.
That was the way we were centuries ago when this was composed.
That's
anyway,
all.
that brings me to maybe the last question, if we can, give the audience also time. So, I will combine two of my questions together. About dharma, what is exactly dharma? Because time and again, we find Krishna exhorting to Arjuna, do your dharma, swadharma api napekshya. And again and again he says, unless you do dharma, you will fall in the eyes of people. And he goes so far as to say, dharmyadhi yuddhat shreyosmin kshatriyasya na vidyate. And he says that it is better to die than to be, suffer ignominy, because if you don't fight, you will suffer ignominy. So, on the one hand, he says, Chaturvarnyam maya srishtam gunakarma vibhagatah. The Chaturvarnya, he sounds even boastful that I have created the Chaturvarnya. But it is not based on birth, but on the work which they do. Whatever livelihood they adopt, according to them, this Varna Vyavastha has been created. And then there is yet another incongruency. He says, Sukha dukkhe same kritva labha labho jaya jayo. You should have absolute equanimity, irrespective of what you are doing. And then he's saying, okay, you do your duty. So why should, if you practice absolute equanimity, why should anybody worry about fame or infame or ignominy? Why should anybody care? Why should anybody seek the validation of anybody else? That is one thing. I'm placing myself in Arjuna's position and then asking, not from specific Arjuna aspect. So why should anybody who goes according to their own conscience seek validation from somebody else? Yeah. Why should the Lord urge Arjuna to fight so that he can maintain his social standing or whatever facade that they are putting? Yeah. And then the Varna Vyavastha. Varna, of course, you also mention it, and I also agree. Varna should not be equated with the present system of caste. It should not be translated as caste. Varna is only 4, castes are many. So they are not equal. Yet, even if we accept this Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Shudra, all equal in their standing, no gradation or anything. When Drona and Kripa and Ashwathama are allowed to leave aside their duty as Brahmana and fight, take on the Kshatriya mantle and then fight, when Arjuna wants to back out from battle, why is he prevented? Does Arjuna have a choice? Varna is something which you choose. Because you choose as your livelihood. That is how Vrinute, Varna, that's how the word comes. So does Arjuna have a choice? Is he being given a choice? He is seeking suitable advice. He has full trust on Krishna. Yeah. So is he giving him the right advice?
Yeah, no, thank you. That's I'm sure that is actually the first question on a lot of people's minds. And that is also the reason why a lot of people don't read the Gita, because they think that these are problems that they have objections to.
But I think even if you read the Gita several times, these questions persist.
Okay, fine. So imagine, before I come up here on stage, if I'm standing in the wings and saying, Sidanti Mama Gatrani,
similar. It was much similar, yes.
If I don't come up, I'm standing there on the side and I'm saying, oh, my skin is dry, my tongue is parched. No, you have to let me answer.
Myself in Krishna's place would say, no, Mani, please, there is no need to be nervous.
But you're not.
We are a very good audience and we won't frighten you.
Very kind of you.
That's what
please,
I would
let
say.
me answer. Let me answer. So, the first thing is that he is already in the battle. The peace talks have failed. He's in the middle of the battle. He has come this far. Either he can quit or he can fight. If he quits, this is how he will be perceived. If he fights, either he will die or he will win. These are the choices in front of him and that context. But the reason why people relate to this is not because Arjuna is standing in the middle of a battle. That is part of a narrative. The reason why we relate to it is that we are all in a battle every single day. Our life is a war. Every single day we are fighting something. We are fighting helplessness, poverty, unemployment, an unfair relationship, a child who is specially, who has special needs. We all have problems in our life and we have to have the courage to get up and do it. We have to get up and live. And this is why we relate to it. That is number one. Now to the gunas and to the chaturvarnyam. I would like to...
Yeah, make it short.
I will make it short, but it won't still be a fraction of your question time.
Yeah.
So now the
12
thing
minutes
is,
more.
when Krishna is talking, it is a part of a narrative. If you focus on those verses, you will see the second line in that is Tasya kartaram mam akartaram avyayam. He is boasting about it. He is taking pride in it. He is talking about the differentiation and the 4 different things he has created. And now we see that differently. Today we interpret and see that differently and we have a problem with it now. At that time, in that social context, he is talking about what he has created, and then he proceeds to say in the next few verses how Arjuna can also not be stuck with what he does. And the rest of the next slokas talk about how to rise above what you do. Meaning that you have, then that comes to the sukha dukkhe same krutva. Samatvam is something that is really talked about in the yoga. In the, the whole idea of doing karma in such a way that you keep out of dvandva. How do you maintain your equanimity?
You do your duty more dispassionately and leave the result to whatever.
And then the other
Thank
thing
you
is that Arjuna's...
so much.
We have to stop?
There's 10 minutes and I would like to
give...
But
I have 1.08 minutes. Can I say a couple of things,
yeah,
please?
Do, yeah.
So now the thing is, everybody focuses on this Chaturvarnyam, but why are you not focusing on the fact that Krishna also talks about what kind of a person is a Pandit? He says that a Panditism, Panditaha Samadarshinaha. He talks about that. He talks about how those who worship me with devotion, they are in me, I am in them. He talks about how you see everybody just as yourself. If you see everybody as yourselves, you do not hurt anybody. These are also messages in the Gita. Instead of focusing on those things, why are we picking on something which is a social, historical context and then troubling over it instead of looking at it in the narrative? Why don't you say, Labhante Brahma Nirvanam Rishaya Kshina Kalmashaha Chinna Dvaidha Yatatmana Sarva Bhuta Hita Rata Hite Rataha. If you want the welfare of all beings, Sarva Bhuta Hite Rataha. There are so many things in the Gita which talk about the sameness, how God is present in everybody's heart, and how you as a Pandit will consider Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Gavihastini Shunichaiva Shvapakecha Panditaha Samadarshinaha. These are also there in the Gita. But we forget about focusing on all of those things and we want to go on talking about that Chaturvarnyam.
No, we do not want to go on talking about that money, but we want to certainly, somehow reconcile with the many contradictions we find.
I don't
and
want
it
to
is
reconcile
not in the,
with it.
No, yeah.
Don't reconcile with it. I don't want to reconcile with it.
So we
go beyond it.
Thank you very much for this awesome conversation, Mani. And my take is that, yes, Gita has something for everybody. That, in fact, even a Nastika can turn to Gita for their life's crisis. So I do think it's not necessarily a very religious kind of a treatise. It is a manual of how you can carry your life forward amidst its many challenges. That's why right from Oppenheimer and Gandhi, Tilak and Godse, everybody have been turning to Gita to justify their actions. So with that, I thank you for your awesome conversation. I'm sure it must have thrown a lot of light into the way you have approached Gita. And if the audience would like to interact with our august guest here, I would invite you, please. We have about 8 minutes. So I think 1 or 2 questions we may be able to take. Yeah. Thank you.
Mahabharata and Gita are the 2 epics of the Hindu religion. Now, my question is, 1, Gita promotes war. Though Arjuna was not willing to fight with his brothers for land and property, it is Krishna who advised him to engage in war. This is injustice. Second one is, Gita propagates karma. Karma means those who practice yajna, they can attain salvation. That is also in Gita. Third one is, it propagates and advocates Chaturvarnya. We know that it is due to Chaturvarnya system, the caste system prevailed even in India and even now. So, if I say that Gita is a book which advocates Chaturvarnya, Karma Siddhanta and motivate others to engage in war and cruelty. In this context, if I say that Gita is neither a book which contains the words of God, nor neither it is a philosophical book, nor a religious book.
So your question, please, because we are running out of time.
My question is whether you are what is called supporting or you agree with my points.
Actually, for the last 1 hour, we have disagreed with your points. So you just have to go back and watch the whole conversation again. I have repeatedly said that this is an allegorization. That is how we relate to the text. And I have explained how in Chaturvarnyam it is a social context. And then the focus in that shloka actually for me is about how kartaram, akartaram, and then goes on to talk about how he teaches Arjuna how to step out of a situation. It is not advocating something. It is not written as an advertisement. It is an excerpt from the Mahabharata. It is a part of a narrative. And if you read it as a narrative, because it is an important work, read it from start to finish with an open mind and see what you like in it. And if you don't like something, put it aside. That's all I can say.
Any other question? We have time for just one short question. Anyone? Is there anything you would like to say as a final word?
Now she's giving me 5 extra minutes.
No, not 5. 3 for you and 2 for me.
You have your 2. How about you ask me something else you've been holding back?
No,
Unleash.
No, I think that will really, open up a whole Pandora of things. So
maybe I'll take the opportunity to say something.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of times I think Arjuna has been misinterpreted as a pacifist, as somebody who doesn't really want to go and fight. If you look at his reasons in the Gita, he says that war will cause kulakshaya. There will be varna sankara and patanti pitaraha, lupta pindodaka kriyaha. And then he is talking about narake aniyatam vaso. And he actually has a very orthodox person's fears about the swajanam hritva, about killing the people in his own clan.
And Krishna alleviates.
And the response actually is liberal. If you contrast it with these are the reasons Arjuna doesn't want to fight, instead basically Krishna is giving him
touches it. He doesn't consider that as a factor at all.
Yes, exactly. So it depends on how you look at it. I think if you read it as a narrative, instead of already coming to it with ideas in your mind, a slightly different take does come out of it. That is what I would really encourage people. Anybody who has any objection, I would say first read it and then let's discuss it.
I
And
second
then we can argue in a more valid manner, in a more legitimate manner.
Exactly. So I second that. I feel that anybody who is even remotely interested in what is said in the Gita should take the trouble to read it from start to finish. And those who are well versed in Sanskrit, they can go at one stretch in Sanskrit itself and then turn to any commentary or translation for that. Where I would highly recommend Mani Rao's translation. It is very lucid and it is in a very different, not the traditional kind of a translation, but something which contemporary folk can relate to, and it will make for a good reading. But I wouldn't say that you should stop at that. You can proceed, read further commentaries, further translations, and then, make your own, rather carve out your own path on its basis, arrive at your own conclusions. And these are all just, catalysts and your support system to help you understand what the Gita has for us all in it.
Thank you. Thank you.